about exaggerated romance. Everything is full of so much romance. And by the way, there are studies by Western scholars on this issue, that it's too much and it's unrealistic, the type of romance we hear about. In the movies, it's exaggerated romance. In the books, the romantic novels, with the guy with the long hair, ma'arif ish, on the cover, exaggerated. And in the music, and of course music, not only does it exaggerate romance, but most of the time it's praising. When music talks about love, is it talking about the wife? When Puff Diddy talks about I love you, ma'arif ish, is he talking about his wife? He's talking about some foreign woman. They're always talking about zina, mostly, fornication. So, the exaggerated romance is what makes now people have this unrealistic view in their head. It's all this stuff we're talking about, that you had me at hello type of stuff. The soulmates kind of action. The prince that will sweep you off your feet. All of this is just exaggerated romance. And it's unrealistic, and it makes people live in this type of dream world where this is their expectation for their marriage. It could be something as unromantic as a brother bringing his father with a broken accent, and they're sitting and they're talking to your father who has a broken accent, or we want your son to marry our daughter. That's it. No flowers, no roses, no prince on a white horse. Khalas. But it might be a very nice relationship after that. طيب. So there are so many problems that are caused by love relationships that are outside of marriage. The least of them is the person becomes a zombie who can't think about anything but the person that they're in love with. I know one brother who had a famous love story in our area. He's in love with this sister for 3 years. We were at the ISNA convention some years ago. We prayed after the salah, after the taslim. He tells me, wallahi, during the whole prayer, I'm just thinking of her. So now, okay, no focus on salah, forget about Allah. Just all he's thinking about is the sister, the sister, the sister, the sister. So this is the worst case. The least case is that you'll just become like that, a mindless zombie. You can't think straight. But the reality is we have so many horror stories when it comes to love relationships. And if these stories were about people who didn't pray and things of that sort, it wouldn't be scary. But the reality is many of the people we consider to be good brothers and sisters have fallen into these things. So many times I get emails from sisters who are active in da'wah, for example, who will say, I started giving da'wah to some young man and now I'm emotionally attached to him. Or a brother who will start giving da'wah and then they will become emotionally attached as well. And stories of pregnancies from the religious people. These things happen. And there is a tension between men and women. So you can't expect that you can mingle with women and sisters will mingle with men and that nothing will happen. Because that's not true, because there's a tension that naturally occurs between men and women. There's a story they say about, I'll see if I can come back to that. But a story narrated by Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah in his book Al-Muntazam. He says that at some point in history the Muslims had surrounded Rome, the Europeans, in a fort, a very strong fort of theirs. So they put it under siege and they stayed there for a long time. He says one of those days, one of the European women, she peered over the wall of the fort, and one of the Muslims, his name is Ibn Abdul Rahim, he saw her, so he became attracted to her. So he asked her, he said, كيف السبيل إليك? He says, how do I get to you? So she says, there is no way for you to get to me except if you become a Christian. And if you become a Christian, I will show you a secret passage so you can come into the fort. So the man, he fell so in love with this woman that he became a Christian, even though he was now in the middle of jihad and he was a hafiz of the Quran. But he became in love, and it took over his heart and his thinking and his emotions. So he became a Christian and he went to her. The Muslims were very saddened when that happened. And the siege continued for a long time, and eventually the Muslims left that fort. And some while later, a group of Muslims passed by the same fort, and they remembered Ibn Abdul Rahim. So they started to call to him, Ya Ibn Abdul Rahim, Ya Ibn Abdul Rahim. So he looked over the wall of the fort. So then they asked him, you got what you wanted. So where is your Quran? And where is your knowledge? And what happened? And what has your prayer done for you? So he began to cry. And he said to them, Wallahi, I have forgotten all of the Quran. And I do not remember except one ayah. And that is the ayah where Allah Azza wa Jal says, رُبَمَا يَوَدُّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَوْ كَانُوا مُسْلِمِينَ. Perhaps the non-believers will wish that they were Muslims. This is the only ayah that he remembered. But so many people, when they become in love, they think that the root of their happiness lays in getting to be with that person that they're so attached to. But these similar stories have happened today. There was one brother who he started practicing Islam, he became active in da'wah, and then one day some old female acquaintance who's a non-Muslim calls him up. So she says, it's been a long time and so on and so forth. He says, I would like to come see you. She says, well, now I'm a Muslim and I'm a practicing Muslim and I'm not able to see you. She says, I'll just pass by, we'll just talk in the car. So she came, he went down, they were talking in the car. She said, I'll just drive around. They start driving around and now he's. So then they stopped in front of a place. She said, this is my house. Why don't you just come in? So now he wants to test himself. So they went inside. The end of the story is that, at the end of the story, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, they committed zina. And the thing was right after they committed zina, and they got up, she looked at him and she said, Islam, huh? As an insult to the injury now. But a lot of brothers do this and a lot of sisters do this. They test their iman. They test their iman. I will give da'wah to the prettiest girls in the school, and inshaAllah nothing will happen to my iman. People always test their iman and test themselves. Like people who pray with the television on. Let me test my khushu'. Allahu Akbar. And they start testing themselves. People do this in so many ways. Monitor yourself. You'll see, oh, there's some danger in that, but inshallah nothing will happen. Let me see what will happen. Let me ask you this. Do you test your life? Do you say, let me run across the busy highway and see if I have my life when I get to the other side? Because you value it, you don't put it to the test. You value your iman, why do you put it to the test? Well, let me give the sisters da'wah and see what happens. By the way, in our da'wah table at our MSA, we have a group of sisters on one side, a group of brothers on one side. Guess who comes to the brothers to ask them about Islam? Jessica and Kimberly and Edwina, ma'arif ish. And who comes to the sisters to ask them about Islam? Chad and Brad and all those guys. So what do? We do a quick switch. Because don't be fooled, I'm working for Allah. So many times something starts out good and the shaitan turns it sour at the end. So we do the quick switch. Now this is Jessica, she wants to learn about Islam. I introduce her to another sister, and that's the end of that. Then there's also the famous excuse that the hearts are pure and the intentions are good. And therefore, if I'm telling someone about Islam with good intentions, it's not a problem. And that may be the case initially, but you never know when something sour will creep into it. And for that reason you find the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and the Prophet ﷺ himself would not put themselves in situations like that, though they had the best of intentions and the purest of hearts. One sheikh was telling about a young man who dialed the wrong number and found this girl. She had a sweet voice over the phone. So they fell in love. He talks to her and she's talking to him with her sweet voice and everything. So they fell in love over the phone, they've never met. And of course this is not a proper relationship. And no one was involved, no walis, no anything, just him and her, as they say, macking on the phone. I know about macking because I'm Kamal al-Mekki, So what happens? He tells her, I want to meet you one day. And they meet with no mahram in the street. And she wears niqab, so when they met, she uncovered her face and he saw that she was, I'm sorry sisters, but this is the reality, she was very ugly. So she was so ugly that he couldn't help himself. He naturally said, A'udhu billah, what kind of a... He said, A'udhu billah, what kind of a face is that? Guess what she responded to him with? She said, well, beauty is not important. The most important thing is akhlaq. Akhlaq? You're meeting a guy you've never met over the phone in the street somewhere without a mahram. You're talking about akhlaq?